Welcome everyone to the first webinar of 2025. Woohoo! Today we're going to be getting into some basic design tips and tricks. It's my hope that by the end of today, and this is going to be an interactive session, by the way, so please feel free to ask questions, jump in, we'll talk it out. It's my hope that by the time we're done today, you will have basic rules and an understanding of design, like the basic design rules that if you followed, you'd be able to create good, harmonious designs that follow all the rules. When you follow the rules, you find that things just look beautiful. People ask me sometimes, like, oh my gosh, like, when I touch a fly or I touch something up, like, well, how did you do that? Like, why is it so much better than when I did it or something like that? It's not like there's an intuition, of course, right? So you can be intuitive towards design, but there's just basic rules and principles that if you follow, you're going to have a wonderful time designing and people will, just gravitate towards your work. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. I would have done an icebreaker, but we only have about 45 minutes and I would like to use that maximally. So usually on Canva, and we're using Canva because of multiple reasons. Actually, I'll probably come out of full screen because, yeah, let's do that because I want you to be able to see the tools as well. Now, how do I come out of? Okay, figured it out. Yeah, so usually you start off with a blank screen if you're not using a template, but we get into template usage shortly. But the first thing I want you to recognize, the first tip you should be conversant with is the imaginary borders. So I already kind of set this up here for us. Just a question to you guys. Did you know, or did anyone here not know that in design, beyond this red line, you cannot put anything unless it's a part of the field that you're going for. Because sometimes, like, let me show an example. Sometimes you might want to do a sample, maybe with text. Maybe the name of the program is Debbie, let's say. So you both have the title, but then maybe you're trying to do like a design thing where it's like running through, and then you have it like maybe low opacity. Let's move, move, move. You have it low opacity, like, as a design scheme, like sometimes this works, but in terms of like information and main elements, there's an invisible border that you cannot put anything past. So there's no text that should ever be crossing this line. Is there anyone here who didn't know about this? I'm just curious.
I did not know.
Okay, okay, great. So that's the first tip that you've learned. This is a basic design rule. It's not just in, design, but it's also in screens. When your TV, like if there's anyone here who has ever used After Effects or Premiere Pro, when you have screens, if you ever turn on the guidelines, you notice that around this edge, depending on how large the screen is, you find, I mean, look at this. Let's move this aside. Do you see this? Do you see this purple line? That's the guideline. It's showing you that nothing should pass here. So Canva is also intuitive in that way that it's kind of letting you know. So it's based on this line that this was, put in there. But just to be exact, it doesn't have to be this wide all the time. You can make it smaller. And you find that if you allow anything to exist in the center of the border that you've created for yourself. For me, now it's almost intuitive because I've practiced this a lot of times. But to begin, you might want to have something like this. Let's take it back. You might want to have something like this, and then when you're done, you can take it off, and you notice that everything just seems to be aesthetically appealing. So that's the first step. Anytime you're designing, be cognizant that there's an invisible border and nothing can go beyond this. All right. So for the next tip and trick, you want to have a hierarchy of text in everything that you're doing. I will also talk about the way that it should be aligned. Hierarchy of text is in the heading, you want to have a subheading, and then your body text. So, I mean, this is basic. I think we all know this. Even when you pick out templates, you'll notice that usually there's a title, and then you notice that maybe it gives an explanation of what this program or what the title is like about, maybe a subheading, and then you have like body text following down below. Now, why this is important is because we're about to get into, okay, yeah, so this is another way. So you notice that you can move it at however high or however low, as long as it's still within the invisible border. Okay. So let's get into fonts usage. This one is a bit tricky. It took me I took two whole typography classes and I almost cried in one of them because my professor was so anal about this. Like she was so specific. Like some days she will not like orange, some days she will not like this. So for some people, font usage can be very subjective, but again, we're talking about basic design rules, right? Rule of thumb for everyone, I want you to leave here with this. You should not be using more than two fonts in any given design. There's designers that can go beyond this, like it's possible. Like there's people out there who you can probably look at something and it still look nice, right? But we're talking about basic design 101 tips, right? I want you to leave here with this no more than two fonts. And how do you distribute this? You can distribute it in such a way that your main title is the first font, that's font A here. So you can choose something decorative, something nice, something unique, yeah? But for everything else, you now have to play with the boldness, the depth, and the width of the other same font, which would be your body text slash subheading. So we can make this, let's see, let's look at some decorative font types here. Oh, now I'm singing the song we just finished. See, I'm on my iPad. I usually don't design on this thing here, but I don't know why it's not giving me the. Oh, I locked the page. That's why. Let's unlock that. There we go. So we're looking at something decorative. Let's say, please don't. I didn't add this here. I just saw something. Never use Comic Sans, please. Comic Sans has been banned. Just like Pluto was banned from being a planet, we ban Comic Sans in all designs. But anyways, we're looking for something decorative. Let's see. You guys look through and tell me which one to pick. Let's see. Someone help me. I'm scrolling through. If you find the one that you like.
Is that Aprilla?
Prila? Oh, this one?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let's use this one. So this is like a very decorative and objectively, this font is giving me fairy tale vibes. So like you probably would not want to use this on something for a company, right? But we're not going to get into that today. Like typography is a whole different world, but this is very decorative. Now let's continue. This is what some people do. Let's find another one, decorative. Let's see. I like this Adlib Pro. Okay, and then let's choose another font for, let's say, oh, I like School Bell. It's giving handwriting. You can see how already chaos, chaos and confusion, no direction. There's like, what is going on here? Let's create a separate page. Let's now start arranging it. Let's say this was the name of our program. In this program, we're going to eat food and whatnot, and then here's the link to said program. Like, what is this? Like, do you see like how this is a bit much? Let's take out our borders because we're done designing now, right? Like this is an eyesore, but let's apply the rule that we just talked about. So we can stick with font A, like that's the Aprilla, but let's make this a body font. Remember, I said two kinds of fonts, and you can't use both. Both can't be decorative. You want to have Let me backtrack. The two fonts you use can be standard and nice, but if you're going to incorporate decorative fonts, only one of them can be, and it usually should be the title. And then for the body text and the subheading, you want to choose something more standard. Rule of thumb, again, in my own personal preference and opinion, sans serif fonts. And sans serif fonts are fonts that don't have things popping out of the edges. That's the simplest way I can explain it. I think Canva should even have, well, on the computer it does. It has like, yeah, no, it doesn't have it on my iPad here, but usually they'll tell you like decorative. Oh, is it here? Okay, yeah, something like, yeah, exactly, it's here. So you can see there's a serif. Let me show you what serif fonts look like. You see that they have like that old type font thing where things are popping out of the edges. But sans serif fonts are fonts that are just straight up. So let's just choose a random one here. Let's do, font is a whole different world, my goodness. Let's do new because it sounds like my name here, right? So let's choose new for the subheading and then new again for the type, for the link or whatever will come down here. And then you want to play with the boldness here. Do you see how this looks more zen? It's just like, if someone sent me something like this, right? I would just know like, oh, well, first of all, there's too many fonts. And I would also know like, oh, well, you can't use so many decorative things in one thing. Just by applying two rules, I chose a random font, right? You can see how it all comes together now. And it looks more, the only word I can think of is Zen. Let's still flip this out here. Let's change the decorative fonts here. Let's choose a random one. Let's go back and do maybe something retro. Let's see. Okay, somebody else help me shout out a font here that I should pick, a random one. You guys are not saying anything like it can be completely random.
Papyrus.
Papyrus. Where did I pass it already? Papyrus. Very ugly fonts. Again, that this is like one of those, sans serif. Sorry, Comic Sans and Papyrus are fonts that you should never use. But let's stick with it. Even the name is giving like look at it. Like you guys, you see stuff like this annoys me. Let me explain. This is a badly designed font. This is what it should really look like. Let's delete this. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. And this is like typography 101. The kerning between the F and the O should not be so far apart. This is badly designed. Let me delete the F and show you what I'm talking about. I should probably have left the original so you see. Like this is better designed, but why is the font itself, when you add the F, why is it so far apart? Look at these two. Do you guys see what I'm talking about?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, Nene. Speak for yourself. So yeah, so this is an indication of a badly designed font, and this is why it's banned too. Tony said that's the design. The design of what? No, typography has rules. Why this look at the space between the O and the N and the T. No. Deleted. But let's stick with it for sake of this. I fixed it. So let's stick with it for the sake of the demonstration. So let's move this to the center. Okay. So let's choose like a sans serif font for the body text now. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So for the sans serif, let's choose a random one. Let me scroll and see something I've not used before. Let's use glacial indifference, and we'll use glacial indifference here. Even though I objectively have just complained about the font, you still see how it's still very much like, oh, okay, like this is still giving. But let's go back to our confused version here with the different fonts. It just looks, you might not know, somebody who's not cognizant of these rules might not know why it just looks bad, but it's because it's breaking so many rules. And then remember, it's even okay, Nene, you have a question. I'll take you in 1 second. It's even still obeying one rule. Some people would like have stuff like this, like maybe here, the disregarding the invisible border, right? And then maybe something out of here, or maybe the link is here and then something else is over here, like just stuff going on. And that's why and how confusion starts and designs don't look appealing. That's really the rationale behind it. And then yes, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Thank you so much. This will kind of take us back, but then I didn't see how you created the invisible border. I've been trying to do that, but I don't see how to.
No problem. So there's two things here. I put a shape over here just to illustrate, but even without the shape, I mentioned how Canva has the borders for you. Like, do you see that purple? Let me change the,
Oh yeah.
let me make this black. I think it might show, yeah. Do you see that purple thing? It also shows
Oh.
you when something is in the center as well. So they have guidelines already embedded into this. Some applications don't. You have to add it yourself. Like if you're designing in Illustrator, for example, or Photoshop, it won't have it. You have to put it in. But because Canva is for beginners, it's designed for design beginners. A lot of these things are in there. It even shows you equidistance as well. So say I was going to create multiple shapes and I wanted them to be the same distance apart from each other. You can see that it shows me the distance here. And then as I adjust, it lets me know once the second shape is equidistant to it. So it helps you, it gives you the guidelines and sets it up in a way where you can follow as many design rules as you would like to, as long as you're cognizant of them. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
A bad. Okay, so we've talked about fonts. So just again to recap, I'm not sure, I'm not following the chats, but you guys can shout out stuff too, please. Feel free to speak out. So to recap for the design rules that we've gone through so far, invisible borders, don't let anything come out of there. We've talked about diversity of, titles. You want to have a header. The header is usually where the focus is, right? You want to have a subheader and body text. Stick with two fonts. You can use all serif fonts. You can use all sans serif fonts, depending on what you're going for. Fonts also have character with them. We just looked at papyrus. Papyrus has a character. It looks like you're designing for Egypt. It's something you would use for like maybe a traditional wear. Like if somebody was trying to do um, maybe a design for um, African print, or someone was talking about history, like it has a character. So there's also stuff like that. But again, this is not the place for it. So anyways, whatever font you do decide to use. Is it? Is it? I didn't know that. Is it papyrus they used for the Avatar movie? It looks similar. I won't be surprised. But I think they probably adjusted it because that was preposterous. I'm even so curious. Let me check it out. Like if it is the same for other things. No, like look, it's fine. I guess it's just the F then. If we put a small letter F. Yeah, see. Do you see? Tony was like, is the design. Do you see that they understand that there's a sequence to be followed? But if it's a capital F, it just doesn't take that into account. That's just bad. But anyways, let's move on. So we've talked about a couple of ones. Stick with two fonts, guys. It will help you, it will save you. And as you get better and as you get more comfortable using different fonts, you find that, like you get more comfortable. Rule number, I don't know what number we're on, but the next rule here is simple is best. That's a rule of thumb. And I'm going to show you as well as we move on. So now let's talk about weight of text. You know that, well, you might not know, some might know, but there's a way that things are supposed to be stacked up for it to look visually harmonious. Different people, different designers have different preferences, but for me, on a basic level, I believe that when you're stacking up text, it needs to be the heaviest and the weightiest on the top, and then you go down. So in descending order, I think. Yeah. Yeah. In descending order is how you should arrange text. So heavy text goes on top. And as you go down, you can reduce the boldness, you can reduce the size. And let me tell you something about hierarchy here. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but let's stick here for a second. So you can see how your eye actually reads this naturally, like heavy text goes on top. But then your attention is naturally drawn here too, even though it's very small. Is there anyone who disagrees with that? Like how it does anyone's eye go in a different direction? Just to confirm.
Nah,
Okay, so you notice that it does the same thing, like it goes from top to bottom, and then you're naturally curious as to, okay, what's down there? That's because emphasis can be created in two different ways, but we'll get into that shortly. So this what I just put here is just a sample to show you the rules of the design, right? Like heavy text goes on top. But because I'm following the rules, let's take off the guidelines, the what's you gonna call it? The guidelines that I've created there with red. This looks like a nice design that's ready to go up to print. It's not saying anything. It's not giving, I just added this logo. This is a program that we're having shortly in Oasis, but never mind. I just added this as a sub logo there. This is a nice design that's ready to go off to print, I think. It's very simple. There's no color. We're not even going into color, but it's like, wow, this is visually harmonious. And then to talk about emphasis here again, I put two arrows here to show your attention, first of all, goes to heavy. And then the second place your attention goes to is this, which is separated. The text goes on top, you read it, but it's not where your attention is. And that's because you can create emphasis in two different ways, like I was mentioning before. So you can create emphasis by making something bigger and heavier than the rest. Let's tweak this so I can show you something here. Do you notice how all of a sudden this doesn't look so harmonious? That's because this, even though it's bigger, it's not as thick as what is below it. So the text seems to almost start competing for your attention. And that's why heaviest and thickest goes on top. And because something is separated, it naturally piques your interest as well. So usually if you're creating a flyer for an event, if you're creating a flyer for what else do people create flyers for? Maybe birthday parties or something. If you have a link or some form of information you want to share with people, you would most likely want to put it down here, separated from the rest, and then maybe highlight it in such a way. All right. Any questions so far before we actually do like a real life demo? I think we're good on time so far.
Yes, thank you so much. I have a question. So, what about the line spacing?
The line spacing. Are you referring to like heavy text goes on top?
No, like the spaces between texts. So the space between heavy and text, and then text and goes.
Okay, so you're talking about yeah, so line spacing,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. If you're going to, I think Canva will let us do this. Let me see. I'm not fully confident, but let's see. If you are using the same text box, you can actually maneuver it in such a way. Let's create a multiple duplicates first so I don't start messing this up. So you're probably asking if I understand how to make sure that this is, let's delete this. What did you observe with my example? You noticed that it was equidistant, or like what exactly are you trying to achieve just to make sure?
I guess I'm trying to ask how to know the best line spacing to use, maybe?
Okay, okay, no problem. So if you want to, if we're using the same text box here, like I'm demonstrating, there's a feature in Canva called line spacing, literally. So it's this icon right here. I hope you saw it. It's right beside the opacity. This is opacity, this is line spacing. And you can bring it up and it makes everything equidistant. Now, sometimes Canva lets me do this. I'm not sure if it's going to allow me to do it with my iPad, but you can still maneuver the sizing of one. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's letting me do it of one versus the other while maintaining the same distance between them. So let's make on top small. So I'm highlighting this and I'm making it small. Work with me, darling. Work with me, darling. And it's a bit wonky. I think I should just manually type it in. Let's do 16. Oh, no, that was too small. Let's do 42. Let's bring that up to, oh, that's too big. Let's do 56. Okay, so you can see it's letting you maneuver it, and you can even still change the boldness of one versus the other. So let's make texts bigger so we maintain the same hierarchy. So does that help answer your question? So, I mean, again, since we're sticking with basic tools, I this myself because each of this is a different text, so they are not actually the same text box. You kind of use your eye to gauge, but as beginners, as someone who's just getting into it, I would suggest using the same text box and then using the line space as an option. Does that help?
It does help. Thank you so much. And then I have one other question. So there was a flyer mother I sent you yesterday, and you know how, you know, being I don't know if everyone here is from ministry, but personally, just having to create flyers for my campus. On top, I have to have Oasis AU. So that Oasis AU isn't the title of my flyer. Like you explained how the heaviest should be on top, but with this instance, that cannot be the heaviest. Uh, yeah, maybe something like that. But if Oasis AU is on there, it's going to be like a smaller text than the heavy, and the heavy will be the title of my event, maybe Jesus in the City or something.
Mhm.
So for something like that, where something on top has to be lighter than the heavy text goes on top in that way, like how do we know what size to use for that?
It's kind of the same rule as how this drags your attention. This text on the bottom has your attention because it's away and it's small. It's like you almost want to focus on the details. Like, what is that, right? It's the same rule of logos. Logos, rule of thumb, should always be somewhere on the corner. So logos can work top left, They can work top right, they can work top middle, they can work bottom left, depending on what you're going for. Now, because this is a um, how do I say this in English? Like I know another language, guys. I said, how do I say this in English? Because this is a vertically inclined design, everything is like kind of going down the center. It'll make most sense either on the bottom, middle, or the top middle. That's how you know. It's kind of intuitive. If everything here was left aligned, let's copy this actually. Let's copy this and go back to this text that is in the same text box because I'll be able to maneuver this easily. If I made this left aligned and I put the logo here in the center, tell me what you notice just by observation.
It looks off center.
What looks off center?
The text, the whole design.
Okay, the text,
It doesn't look straight.
it doesn't look straight.
I
Okay,
think the whole,
okay, that's great, adorable. So it look there's something off about this. Does anyone notice anything else? And let's duplicate this because I want to change something. Okay, nobody's answering me. Let me just move into my points. The reason it looks okay, the alignment,
Yes.
yeah, the reason it looks like that is because there's two clashes happening here. So your eye is moving to the left, but then something in the middle is dragging for your attention. So it's not harmonious. So the a simple adjustment here is to put it on the right here. And if I were to add a link, let's copy the small text right here and post it here. If I were to copy the link and post it here, so also I can't post it in the center because that's not harmonious. So I'd have to take that and make it aligned with the rest of the text right here. And so all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this is a visually appealing thing. It's a bit left aligned. You know how you'd be able to balance something like this? Let's pick a random element. Let me see, like a shape here. This is why the design rules are really just the things of design. So how to balance something like this is I might now add something to balance the design, and then maybe this would be yellow instead or something. Let's make this black. Let's delete this. Oh, sorry. Let's make this yellow and delete this. So in a way, now we're kind of like getting to like, okay, this is interesting. But you can see that because everything is left aligned and we obeyed the rule of design, this green is not very pleasant. Let's make it like, yeah. So because everything is like following a design, all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, this is nice. Like we've not even done anything. All we're just doing here is following the rules and everything is harmonious. So yeah, does that help?
Now that's a fire flyer. I want that flyer.
Once
That's great.
Yeah, once we start playing with text here, like you probably want to change the color so it matches this on the left here. Make this very like make this stand out. You want to put like and be able to accentuate it, like maybe put a background behind it that stands out. I'm trying to say something. Oh, that sounds like a baby. Who has a baby? Hi, baby. Oh, is someone talking? I can't really tell. Let me see. I think she didn't know she was muted or muted. But yeah, you probably want to start adding like this is not working out necessarily because it's too tiny. If it was shorter, let's see. Hi, link. Then we can make it bigger so that it can actually be visible. And then, yeah. So that's how you begin to like make stuff that's like visually harmonious.